Alright guys, this is homework for section 4.3, and I'm asking you guys to do all of these. Alright, let's go ahead and start with number 1. Here we're asked to solve the equation using square roots. So for this one, number 1, our problem is w squared minus 22w plus 121 equals 81. So the first thing we have to notice here is that this on the left side of the equal sign is actually a perfect square. So we can reduce this trinomial into just a binomial squared. What I mean by that is these three terms will become w minus half of this term, 11, and we're squaring the entire thing, equals 81. We can verify this by using the box method. So if we use our box here, w minus 11, w minus 11, w times w is w squared. 11 times w is negative 11w. Negative 11 times negative 11 is positive 121. And then the same thing here. W times negative 11 is negative 11w. Combine your like terms, and we're left with w squared minus 22w is plus 121. So we get the exact same thing that we have here. So the way that you guys notice this is if this middle term is the half of this term is 11, negative 11, and then the square root of 121 is 11 as well. So that's how you would know to go from here to here. If not, then we're going to have to complete the square, which we'll do that later on. So once we have this, now if we're trying to solve for w, we have to take the square root of both sides. So w minus 11 is equal to positive or negative 9. We take the square root of a variable, so we have to take both the positive and the negative side. And here we have two answers. W equals positive 9 plus 11, or w equals negative 9 plus 11. So we get w is equal to 9 plus 11 is 20, or w equals negative 9 plus 11 is positive 2. Final answer. Alright, number 2, same thing. K squared minus 16k plus 64 is equal to negative 8. So here, same thing. Half of this term is 8, and the square root of 64 is 8. So this becomes k minus, the sign in the middle stays, squared, equals negative 8. Take the square root of both sides, and we have k minus 8 is equal to the plus or minus the square root of negative 8. This here becomes 8 can be factored into 4 times 2, and the square root of 4 is a perfect square. And then don't forget, since we have the negative outside, we have to bring out that I. So here we have 2i square root of 2. The square root of 4 is 2. This doesn't have anything, so we just leave it inside the square root, and it's a negative, so we bring out the I on the outside. So these two together, now we have k minus 8 is equal to the plus and minus, I forgot it there, plus or minus 2i square root of 2. Add 8 to sides, and here we have k is equal to 8 plus or minus 2i square root of 2. Final answer. Alright, number 3. Number 3 says t squared minus 30t plus 225 is equal to negative 24. Alright, so the same thing here. Half of 30 is negative 15, and then the square of 15 is 225. So this becomes t minus 15 squared is equal to negative 24. Take the square root of both sides, and we have t minus 15 is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 24. 24, we can factor that into 6 times 4. The square root of 6 is nothing, however the square root of 4 is, so we can bring that outside, and then we have a negative inside the square root, so we can bring out the I. So this becomes 2I times the square root of 6, plus or minus. Right? So this equals this, which equals this, so I'm just going to take these two things on the outside. T minus 15 is equal to plus or minus 2I times the square root of 6. Add 15 to both sides. T is equal to 15 plus or minus 2I square root of 6. Alright, number 4. Number 4 says (9p squared plus 6p plus 1 is equal to 12). Alright, so here our strategy is going to be a little different. Here the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 1 from both sides. So subtract 1, and we have 9p squared plus 6p is equal to 11. I am going to divide out the 9 from, so divide by 9, divide by 9, divide by 9. Everything is divided by 9. So we have p squared plus 6 over 9 reduces to 2/3. P is equal to, and then 11 over 9 stays 11 over 9. So we're going to take half of this term and then square it. That's where we're going to add to the our equal sign. So 2/3 divided by 2 is the same thing as, oh, and we're squaring this. So 2/3 divided by 2 is 2 over 6, and we're squaring that. So that becomes 4 over 36. And that is where we're going to add and subtract to both sides. Add to both sides of the equal sign. This term right here actually reduces to 1/3. So this will just be 1/9, which is the same thing if we just reduce 4/3. So 1/9 is the term that's going to go inside my binomial. So that's p plus half of this term, which was 1/9, squared, is equal to 11 over 9 plus 1 over 9 is 12 over 9, which reduces to, divided by 3, 4/3. Cool. Let's see. I'm actually going to leave it like this because I'm predicting that I'm going to have to take the square root here, and the square root of 3 is going to look weird to have the square root underneath, so I'm just going to leave it like this for right now. So from here we're going to take the square root of both sides. Take the square root of both sides. P plus 1/9 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 12 over the square root of 9 is 3. The square root of 12 can reduce to 4 times 3. The square root of 2 is 2, sorry. So that becomes plus or minus 2 times the square root of 3 over 3. And the last step here is to subtract 1/9 from both sides. So subtract 1/9, subtract 1/9. We have p is equal to plus or minus, negative 1/9 plus or minus 2 square root of 3 over 3. To get our common denominator here, we have to multiply by 3. So 3 over 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So this becomes negative 1/9 plus or minus 2 times 3 is 6 square root of 3, and 3 times 3 is 9. So that just becomes one whole denominator. So p equals negative 1 plus or minus 6 times the square root of 3 all over 9. Alright, number 5. Number 5 says, find the value of c that makes the expression a perfect trinomial, then write the expression as the square of a binomial. So it's somewhat the exact same thing that we were doing here. It's just our final answer should look something like this. W minus 11 squared. Alright, so let's start with number 5. Number 5 says, x squared plus 16x plus c. We're trying to find c. So the way we have to do this is we have to take half of this term. So 16 divided by 2. And then square that one. So that is 16 divided by 2 is 8 squared. 8 squared is 64. So that's going to be our c value. So that's x squared plus 16x plus 64. And if we want it as a trinomial, then that is just x plus, we always take the sign of the middle term, and then half of the middle term, which was 8, plus 8 squared. Final answer. Alright, number 6. Number 6 says x squared plus 7x plus c. We're going to take half of the middle term, so 7 over 2, then square it. 7 over 2 does not reduce, so we're just going to square everything. When you're squaring something like this, you square both the numerator and the denominator. So 7 squared is 49, and 2 squared is 4. So my c is equal to 49 over 4, so that's x squared plus 7x plus 49 over 4. And if we want it as a binomial, then it's just going to be x plus the half of the middle term, so 7 over 2, and we're squaring that. Alright, number 7. Number 7 is y squared minus 3y plus c. Again, we're going to do the same thing. Take half of the middle term, negative 3 over 2, and then square it. Negative 3 squared is positive 9, and 2 squared is 4. So c is equal to 9 over 4 minus 3y plus 9 over 4. Last step is to do it as a trinomial, so y minus half of the middle term, negative 3 over 2 squared. Alright, number 8. Number 8 is y squared plus 20y plus c. Again, c is equal to half of the middle term squared. 20 over 2 is 10. 10 squared is 100. So c is equal to 100. So it's y squared plus 20y plus 100. And our binomial is y plus 10 squared. Alright, number 9. Number 9 says solve the equation by completing the square. So we're still doing the same thing here, guys. Now since we have an equal sign, now we have to do the same thing to both sides. So if we add something to one side, we add it to the other side. So first we have to distribute this q here. So number 9 is q times q plus 6 equals 1. Distribute the q, and I get q squared. Q times 6 is 6q is equal to 1. Once I have this, I can complete the square here. So take half of the middle term, 6 over 2, and then square it. 6 over 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. So this I'm going to add to here, and I'm going to add it to the other side of the equal sign. So what that looks like is q squared plus 6q plus 9 is equal to 1 plus 9, which is 10. So q squared plus 6q plus 9 is equal to 10. Here I can reduce it into a binomial. So I have q plus half of the middle term, which is 3 squared, is equal to 10. Now we can do our square root property, which is the thing that we did from number 1 through 4. Take the square root of both sides. Cube plus 3 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 10. 10 is 5 times 2. The square root of 5 is nothing, the square root of 2 is nothing, and there's no other factors since 10. So just leave it as the square root of 10. Subtract 3 from both sides, and my final answer is Q is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 10. Alright, number 10. Number 10 is 5h squared minus 5h minus 15 is equal to 0. Right here, since our leading coefficient is not 1, it's a 5. The first thing I have to do here is divide everything by 5. So divide this side by 5 and divide the other side by 5. 5h squared over 5 is just h squared. Negative 5h over 5 is negative h. Negative 15 over 5 is negative 3. And 0 divided by 5 is 0. Now that we have this, we can add 3 to this side, so that we can just have our h's, and we can complete the square on that. So that's h squared minus h is equal to positive 3. I'm completing the square here, so my middle term is 1. So that's negative 1 half, and we're squaring that. So we get negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. 2 squared is 4. So I'm adding 1/4 here, and I'm adding 1/4 here. So now I get h squared minus h plus 1/4 is equal to 3 plus 1/4. Common denominator, so I'm going to multiply by 4. That's 12 over 4. And then this becomes my binomial. So that's h minus 1/2 squared is equal to 12 over 4 plus 1 over 4 is 1/13/4. Alright. Now that we have it like this, we can take the square root of both sides. Square root of both sides. H minus 1/2 is equal to the plus or minus the square root of 13 over the square root of 4 is 2. And the last thing here is to add 1/2 to both sides. Add 1/2, add 1/2. So h is equal to 1 over 2 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. Or we can write it as, since they have the same denominator, we could just write it as one huge fraction. 1 plus or minus the square root of 13 over 2. Cool. Alright, number 11. Halfway there. Number 11 reads 3x squared. Oh, let's do it like this. 3x squared plus 24x plus 15 is equal to 0. So the same thing here. Our leading term, the coefficient is not 1, so we have to divide out this 3. So divide this side by 3 and this side by 3. Once we do that, 3 over 3 is just x squared. 24 over 3 is 8x. Plus 5 is equal to 0. 0 over 3 is 0. I'm going to subtract the 5, subtract the 5. So we get, I'm going to go ahead and write it down here. X squared plus 8x is equal to negative 5. We're going to complete the square on the left side. Half of 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So my binomial is x plus 4 squared is equal to, and we're adding the 16 here. So negative 5 plus 16 is positive 11. Take the square root of both sides, and we get x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 11. The 11 is actually a prime number, so it doesn't factor out into anything. Subtract 4 from both sides. X is equal to negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 11. That one was easier. Cool. Alright, let's keep going. Number 12. Is 3y times y minus 8 is equal to negative 36. Alright, we have to distribute out our factor here. So that's 3y squared minus 24y is equal to negative 36. Again, it's not 1, so we have to divide out that 3. Divide 3. And I get y squared minus 8y is equal to 36 over 3 is 12, negative 12. And we're completing the square here. Negative 8 over 2 is negative 4. Negative 4 squared is 16, positive 16. So here my binomial is y minus 4 squared is equal to negative 12 plus 16 is positive 4. Square root of both sides, y minus 4 is equal to plus or minus 2. And the last step here is to add 4 to both sides. So from this I get y is equal to positive 2 plus 4, which is 6, or y is equal to negative 2 plus 4, which is 2. Number 13, 7t squared minus 18t equals 14 plus 10t. So for completing the square, I want all the terms that have t in it to one side, and then all the numbers that are by themselves to the other side. So I am going to subtract 10t, and that one stays. So 7t squared minus 28t is equal to 14. It's not a 1, so I have to divide that out. Divided by 7. I get t squared minus 4t is equal to 2. Complete the square. Negative 4 over 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is positive 4. So t minus 2 squared is equal to 2 plus 4, which is 6. Square root. T minus 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 6. And then add 2 to both sides. Add 2. So my final answer is t is equal to 2 plus or minus the square root of 6. And it's getting easier. Alright, number 14. Number 14 is 2s squared plus 4s equals negative 6s plus 3. Again, we want all s's to one side, so add 6s to both sides. That's 6s. 2s squared plus 10s is equal to 3. Divide out the 2. S squared plus 5s is equal to 3 over 2. Alright, now we're going to complete the square here. So here I'm actually going to have to write out because we have fractions now. So 6s squared plus 5s, and we're going to see what we get when we complete the square, equals 3 over 2, and we're going to add the same thing to both sides. So 5 over 2 squared is equal to 25 over 4. So my binomial here is 25 over 4 plus 25 over 4. So this becomes s plus 5 over 2 squared equals, I want a common denominator here, so I'm going to multiply by 2, 4 and 6. 6 plus 25 is 31, and then the common denominator 4. Square root of both sides, square root all around. We get s plus 5 over 2. Well, my s's and my 5's look the same. Equals plus or minus the square root of 31. 31 is also prime, so no factors. And then the square root of 4 is 2. Last step, subtract 5 over 2, subtract 5 over 2. And our final answer is s is equal to negative 5 over 2 plus or minus the square root of 31 over 2. Or we can just write it as one huge fraction since they already have the common denominator. Negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 31 over 2. Alright, almost done guys. Number 15.